Hi, Rod. Welcome to MovieJunk. How are you?
Hey man, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining, man. I can't say how much an honor it is to have you on. We have actor, writer, director Rod Rinks joining us today, fresh off the release of Made in Mexico. Also
Yeah,
starring Lillo Brancato and also co-produced with Mario Lopez. And
right.
I also noticed you're a star in Mobtown as well. I can't thank you enough for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
And before we get things sort of kick-started, how was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was pretty mellow. Normally do a big thing. My wife had surgery and spine surgery, and so we were just gonna go to the beach and kind of lay low. I got three kids. They were in Made in Mexico, um, and it got windy here in LA, so we ended up just staying here. My brother came over, my mom. We ended up having like a Thanksgiving, anyways. What was supposed to be mellow turned into like cooking and the whole bit, but it was good. It was fun.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, and it's crazy. We're jumping right into to Christmas now, so
Yeah,
definitely a busy time of the year.
yeah.
I do want to jump into Made in Mexico and what an amazing job that you've done. And just wanted to confirm: is this film loosely based on your life? Is this a semi-biographical film as well?
Well, I kind of projected my future in a way. The way it came about is I have been writing films for a long time. I've been writing screenplays, and I know people who have money, and a lot of the people that I know don't invest in movies. They're business people. But, for years now, I've been trying to lure them into getting in the entertainment business, and to no avail. And so recently, the tide started to change and the landscape changed, and you were able to movies became easier to make because of technology. And if you had a good story, I mean, there's plenty of actors here in LA who are willing to, who are good actors. You just don't get the breaks, and there's only so many roles in so many movies, and now you're able to go out, like me as a filmmaker. I'm able to go out there and make stuff. So I'd written a movie called Dino and Me, which was about this. I always kind of follow the same storyline: middle-aged guy who's, kind of reliving his past, or mistakes that he thinks he made that he wants to try to redo. And I had written this script called Dino and Me. I got Jim Brubaker, who was, big producer. He was on board. The Dean Martin estate actually signed off. He was going to come out in it in a hologram form. I had Nicolas Cage interested in directing it. It just really kind of like snowballed. It went from this little independent movie. Well, it started as a short film that I was going to make, and it snowballed into an indie, and then that turned into $13 million. And it was just too big for me. So a buddy of mine who co-produced or executive produced Made in Mexico, Steve Weiser, he's actually in it. He plays one of the shady filmmakers. Him and I were driving out to Vegas, and he's connected with a bunch of money, and he's got that hotel channel connection. And he saw an opportunity to make a movie and to put it on that platform. And he's a smart dude. So we were on our way to Vegas. I don't know why we were driving. He doesn't like to fly. He's afraid. So I'm talking to him about movies, and I'm in a lot of pain because I just had a surgery, and I have three kids, and I didn't want any more. So you could figure out the surgery. And so we're driving, and he goes, you really just try to write something that's close to you. You're writing all these things that are great. He's like, but really kind of like something that resonates with you. And I said, okay, well, like, I just moved out to the suburbs from the city, and so like I said, what if it was like a suburban guy, suburban dad who writes this script finally, and it becomes this like modern day Rocky. He's like, yeah. And I said, yeah. And he's got, he's chasing the screenwriting career that it's really like a young man's game, And he's got these kids, and he really should be thinking about like 401ks and retirement, not starting a career as like a tough career at that. So we start laughing, and I don't think it's going anywhere other than a conversation, right? And I started pulling clips from headlines, the Chapo Guzman, Sean Penn, being around a lot of celebrities and stuff like that, working in the business. It's funny because I come across people who are famous, but they're broke.
Yeah.
And I come across people who are wealthy and they want to be famous like you. And so it's this weird relationship of like, you know, you see these famous people and you're like, dude, initially in the beginning, I'd be like, wow, you're on TV. You're like, and they're like, yeah, but I can't can you buy me a drink? And I'm like, what? You know, so, or vice versa, the guys who create things and have all this money and all they want is notoriety. All they want people is to know. So I kind of took that, and then I took like the Chapo Guzman thing, and being a writer, I've had stuff stolen from me, and there's nothing you could really do unless you have representation, unless you're really big. And so, you know, I just started putting these pieces together as we're driving, you know, as me and my buddy Weiser are driving. And so we get to Vegas, and I'm just in excruciating pain. I'm talking like pain like you would not believe. And so we go to this bar. We're staying, he has a big house there. So we go to his house. I'm pounding drinks. We go to this bar. I'm drinking tequila just to kind of like ease the pain. And he looks over at me and goes, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. He goes, when we get back to my house, I'm going to cut you a check. He goes, and I'm going to be the executive producer on this film.
Wow.
I said, okay. He goes, we're going to put it up on the hotel channel and we're going to try it. That's what we're going to do. And I've done short films. I've done web series. I've hustled. You know, at one point, I had taken a big pay cut. I had taken a big pay cut at work. And so I was stressed out. So I was getting up at like 4 a.m. I was driving into LA because that's where I was working, because it's living in the suburbs. And I used to box a little bit. So one day I was in the gym and I was hitting the bag like an LA Fitness. And a buddy came in that just happened to be there. It was a security guard, and he saw me hitting the bag. And he goes, man, you know, you look like, you know, you can move, throw your hands. I go, oh, well, you know. And he goes, will you teach me? And I go, I'm not a trainer. I'm going somewhere with this. And so then next thing I know, I start training people. I'm not a boxing trainer, but I get it. But those car rides in at 5 a.m, Weiser too was driving in at 5 a.m. So him and I would have we're the only two guys awake. And so, you know, we start talking about, you know, business ventures, and like I said, he's a business guy. So he's got all these things going on.
Networking.
I'm trying to pitch him movies. And he's like, dude, it's not going to work. And it, like I said, it just so happened that cut to a few years later, and him and I become good friends. This happens. And so cut back to Vegas, he cuts me a check, and he says, now you have no excuses. And so I took that initial money and I went home and I wrote the first draft. The first draft was called El Chingon Lives. And so I wrote it, and it was a pretty easy write. I wrote it in like, you know, 2 weeks, because it was just me, you know, kind of like projecting my future, then using those headlines as like, you know, just to kind of bump up the story and fictionalize it, but it's all kind of based on true events. And so he wrote it, he read it, he loved it. And one day Lillo had come I was working on a TV show called Extra at the time, and Mario was interviewing him. And he tells us how he's Colombian, and he was adopted by the Brancato family, and his real name is Saul Rodriguez. And I was like, holy shit. Like, and so I have buddies with a guy named Maurice Compte too, who's in Narcos. He's a really talented actor. And I had approached Maurice first because he really likes my writing, and we've been trying to work on different scripts. And I said, dude, I got an idea for you. I have a role if you want to do it. It's super low budget, dude. And it's really like, you know, you're going to be playing a gangster. And he was like, I kind of want to branch out from that. And so he said, what's the other role? And I said, well, the other role is just like the suburban dad who's, you know, just kind of a suburban dad who's a writer. He's like, I want to play that role. And I said, well, the way that I'm writing it, dude, I can't, like, it's a small crew. I'm going to have to shoot whenever I can. And he was like, well, how much can you pay me? And I told him I couldn't. So getting back to Lillo, not that Lillo was my second choice, but I hadn't known Lillo yet to this degree. And then so Mario interviews Lillo. I find out he's Colombian. I approach him and I say, Lillo, I hope I don't insult you. I can pay you. I'll put you up and everything. I have a role for you in this little film I'm doing. And he said, okay, you know, I go, it's a drug lord, it's a comedy, dark comedy, you know, it's pretty good. It's a feel good movie at the end of the story. He goes, well, send it to me. So I sent it to him. No promises, obviously, he said. He gets back to me the next day and he goes, I'll do it.
Wow.
And so he goes, I love the character. I love the story. he likes me too. He goes, I like you. I believe in you. I think you're a good dude. And I think you have something to offer. And at the time I just started a podcast called Let's Get Into It with a guy named Mark Roberts. It's about entertainment. It's about independent filmmaking. And so I started plugging, we would talk about the script there because Roberts had told me there was no way I could make a movie for 10 grand. And I said, I can, because I know I could. And so that's kind of like the genesis of it. And I got Lillo. There was some buzz on the podcast that took off. I had that home at that hotel channel already secured. And then I still needed more money, right? And so I went to a buddy of mine in San Diego who owns a flooring business. And he came back to me and said, how I'm in, like, what do you need? And I said, let's start with, 5 grand or 10 grand, done. And so then Lopez actually approached me and said, hey, you need some money, right? And I said, well, it was funny because I actually didn't really need the money at the time. He said, how much money? Do you need more money? I heard your podcast, you need money. I go, well, it's an independent film, but you always need money. And he said, I'll give you 10 grand, but I want to be an executive producer. And and I said, great. So that's pretty much how it unfolded. I mean, I ended up making the movie. I shot it in 6 days for 20 grand, but the movie itself is, it's a lot more than that. Like Rich Alarcon, my editor, who I made, a partner, I went to him right before the pandemic hit, and, we had no idea. And I asked him to help me with the first 20 minutes because the pacing was off. And he's just an incredibly talented dude. And I gave him like $1,500, and I said, can you help me? He said, yeah. And then the pandemic hit, and it dried up all his work, and this is all he had. And he went to town on it. And so that was great. And through the podcast, we interviewed a guy named Joel C. High, who's a big music composer. Music supervisor. And so we were talking about the movie, and I showed him some dailies, and he said, man, this is really good. He goes, you can't afford me, but my assistant wants to get her feet wet, and I'll mentor her. Yeah. And so I said, and so all these pieces started to come
falling together for you.
It was like, and like I said, coming off of like Dino and Me, where, I had so much momentum, Jim Brubaker, Nicolas Cage, Dean Martin Estate, that, Vegas. This movie was going to be something that I couldn't, and then it got too big, I couldn't control. So I saw things fall apart, and then I saw things build up with Made in Mexico. And yeah, man, I'm super, super blessed and excited.
Yeah, it really is a true underdog story. It's funny. When I was watching it, I was getting sort of Rocky feels for this. You're cheering for the underdog. And I actually I've seen the movie twice now. When we first connected, and I was actually I was in Arizona attending the Talking Sopranos event. Yeah. And in the hotel, that's where I saw the trailer for this. And I see Lillo, and I was like, oh, what is this? I was immediately bought in. Yeah. And I had just met Lillo at the Sopranos Con about a month and a half before that. I had the privilege of meeting him. I'm a huge fan. Obviously, love him from A Bronx Tale, Sopranos. So when I saw this, I was like, whoa, this is unbelievable. So I was all over it, immediately watched it when I was in the hotel. Recently rewatched it again, and obviously loved it even more. Yeah. But I mean, that story is amazing. I mean, again, just shooting this, you said in 6 days, right? Just to
6 days, 20, it ended up being 20 grand. That's what that's what we spent. Like I said, there's a lot more into it though. You know what I mean? Like the involved, I had Russ Emanuel, who runs Extreme Music. It's a big library. He was our sponsor for a podcast. He followed the storyline for a year about, this movie, and we had him on as a guest and everything. So he didn't give me his library for free, but he knew my budget. And so he ended up I got a really good deal with Extreme Music. And I tried to utilize, I used a lot of people I'm from Chula Vista, South San Diego. So I used a lot of people from down there. I used B-side players. They're a group out of there. I tried to use like Alarcon, Rich Alarcon, he's from the South Bay. He's from Sweetwater, which is basically like right next to Chula Vista. It's just a whole synergy connection from the one girl who plays Connie. She's from there. My uncle Paulie's in it. He played one of the henchmen. So I really just try to use people who I feel, who are close to me and I believe in, and who want a little bit of a break, because we all need a break. We all need somebody to say, hey, give this guy a shot. Let's see what he could do. And so,
the part that really killed me, where I was just dying laughing, was because your character was obviously trying to talk the Ochoa character, the Lillo character, into not wanting to write the movie, because you're like, I only write, what I know. And then the part where he goes, George Lucas, he go to outer space, he meet Chewbacca.
Yeah.
I started cracking up when I heard that. I was like, man, he gave you no excuses.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I've actually had people, like, I've had producers tell me things similar. Like, it is true. You do got to write what you know. But at the same time, if everybody just wrote what they knew, there wouldn't be any expansion. You know what I mean? Like, because you do need some outside perspectives. But at the same, with that said, as a novice filmmaker and writer, you know what I mean? Like, I need to write what I'm comfortable with, what I know. And until I get my feet, enough into the game, then I can kind of branch out and do more research and do things that I'm more, that appeal to me or that I'm interested in.
When you started finally kind of getting the ball rolling and you started shooting, was there ever a point where you're like, I think I'm over my head, I don't think I'm going to be able to get this made? Or once you started rolling, it was basically, all lights ahead?
Oh no, man. It's like, I'll never forget pulling out of my driveway here. And, I had my car full because I did everything. I did wardrobe, I produced. Like, it was me. There was like maybe 3 guys. My crew was small. I had a camera op. I had Ron Lee, who co-directed with me. My camera op actually did the lighting, him and Ron Lee. So they kind of did that. And then we had an audio guy. And that was pretty much it, dude. And so I handled everything else. Like, I handled the feel of the movie. I handled everything else. And so I did get some because I'm in, a makeup artist by trade. So I did get some people who came up and helped me out. And, my wife helped me out. She was a former makeup artist. But I'll never forget pulling out of my driveway and thinking, like, what the fuck am I doing? I got 3 kids in my house. Like, I'm leaving the 1 week I get off a year for vacation. I'm going to try to make this movie, but I already had Lillo. It was, as a filmmaker, you always question yourself. Like, I don't care what level you're at in any creative endeavor. Anthony Hopkins said not too long ago, like, what happens when people find out I'm a fraud? I mean, that's Anthony Hopkins. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You always have these feelings, like, you're always overwhelmed. You're always underwater. You always feel like, what am I doing? But if you stick to the plan and you stay focused and you keep going, it's going to turn out, hopefully the way you intended it. But yeah, man, I felt like that when I was there. I felt like that the whole time. I probably knocked about 6 years off my life, but that's okay.
Did you allow for any sort of ad-libbing? Did you allow Lillo to ad-lib or any of the actors to ad-lib, or what you wrote is kind of how it was eventually shot?
I'm super, like, why a lot of these people like working with me is because I'm really collaborative, and I don't, it doesn't matter who it is. If somebody has an idea and, they say, it'd be funny if this happened. And I'm open for people speaking up. Now, you can't get crazy and totally go off script or anything.
Yeah.
But no, I we went through the script and I said, how do you like, this is the dialogue. It was real regional kind of like comedy too, like, when he says, no mames, that's like a Mexican thing. Like, that's like forget about it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's similar to that. So he understood it all though. And he, there were certain things that he wanted to change, but no, we did a lot of ad-libbing. We did a lot of stuff that, as long as we kept moving forward in the direction and each scene was pushing the story further and further, then, we just went with it. So yeah, we did some ad-libbing but yeah, we did stick to the script, pretty well though too. So,
I mean, the movie kind of, sets off, there's a pretty happy ending, but there's always room for more. Are there any talks for a sequel, or do you plan on maybe expanding?
It's funny because I'm in the process right now. I have 2 production companies who are interested in a possible sale and actually moving forward with me to make more films. I'm supposed to be hearing from them like today or tomorrow. One of the companies, not the two that are interested, there was another company who watched it and they said, look, we get it. You made it for 100 or you made it for 20 grand. Like there's certain scenes in it that as a filmmaker, you're like, go in retrospect, if I would have had a little more money and a little more time, it could have been lit a little bit better, which means, it makes a big difference. But I didn't. I had to utilize what I had and the time frame I had and the amount I had. And so, I've had people say, would you be interested in getting, more money and remaking this movie? Because it's funny, it's a good concept, it's a feel-good story.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. And I was
very relatable.
Super relatable. But I got a lot more stories. And so Made in Mexico is Made in Mexico. Now a sequel, I don't know. Joe Aguilar, he's got wealth. He's rich with love. And now he's got fame. So, it's not the fame he wanted. It wasn't the film that his kids would be proud of, quote unquote. But he did do it. So you never know.
Yeah, as an aspiring writer myself, I mean, definitely, just gives you additional added motivation that it's possible. And again, like I said, it gave me that Rocky feels as well. So excited that you were able to kind of, the journey, sounds such extraordinary. And again, the second I saw that trailer, I was like, man, I'm all over this. And excellent movie. And I know for fans right now, it's primarily available on your website, right? madeinmexico.com.
madeinmexicofilm.com. And we're on an app called Views, which is VIOOZ, which is a really cool app. It's going to take off. It's just in its early stages. It's basically like on-demand pay-per-view. So for your mobile device. And so those are the two places you could find it. And depending on what happens here in the next few days, if there's a sale and one of these companies purchase it, then you'll be able to get it probably on any of the streamers. If I don't make a sale within the next couple week or so, I'm going to probably go with another company called Indie Rights, and they'll put it up. It'll go to Amazon and all those other places. So yes, it will eventually be on a streamer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out
the options for it.
The options, and to pay back my investors and the people who believed in me and worked on this film, who did it for not a lot of money or for back end points. And I want to take care of those guys because they took care of me. And so the business side I got to kind of try to handle better now.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. I mean, if you can expand from this, and that would be amazing. But it definitely belongs on an Amazon or a Netflix. Again, it's just a feel good movie. Definitely. Yeah. There's we're saying super relatable. A ton of folks would obviously enjoy seeing it. Now, I know now you're primarily a filmmaker, but you mentioned that you've worked, as under the makeup departments. You've also been an actor. I can't let you sneak out of here without kind of walking us through. How did you even get into the business? Because I mean, you've been in the business for several years. Just the movie came out, but you've been around for a while.
Yeah, so it's funny because right. And when I tell my story about makeup, how I got involved, I was going to be a cop. I was testing for the San Diego Sheriffs and San Diego PD, and I was doing really well. And this was back in the late 90s. And I didn't have any aspirations to get in the film business or makeup or anything like that. And so I was working at a women's shoe store. This could be my next film because it is relatable and people love the story. I was working at this women's shoe store, and a buddy of mine had gotten a job at a makeup counter. And he was a good looking dude, and he was comfortable around women, and he sold a lot of merchandise. So the counter manager, who was a woman, an older woman, said, "Hey, sales ploy, do you have any friends who would be interested? I'll pay them handsomely." And so he goes, "I have a buddy who works in women's shoes." So he came to me and he asked me, and I said, "I don't know anything about makeup." And he was like, "Dude, you meet a lot of girls in shoes, you're going to meet double the amount of girls in makeup." And I was like, all right. So I met with the lady, and she made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And I got into it. And I got to say, he was horrible. I was okay at makeup, but you do something every day, you get good. And from
Yeah.
there, I just kind of took off. Like I started, it was an Estee Lauder counter. And then from there, one of the guys from Mac came over and recruited me. So I started working for Mac. And then a buddy of mine who was in film school asked me one day if I wanted to be in this student film playing a gangster. And I was like, okay, but I'll try it. And so I liked it. And so I decided, when I left the criminal justice world and all that other stuff, I said, you know what, I'm going to go to LA and try to be an actor. And I came up here and I had like mediocre success, like did a couple indie films and some shorts. And I was working as a makeup artist and I didn't know the business. So I said, you know what I do know is makeup. And I was getting hired to do jobs. And I ended up becoming Steve Harvey's personal makeup artist. And so I said, I'm going to learn everything behind the camera. I'm going to learn about all these positions. And I knew Mario because we grew up together. I didn't know him very well. And so I ended up running into him and we started working together and, it's kind of taken off since. And so, that was probably in 2004 or 5 when I started working with him. And then, just started meeting more people and then started to kind of revisit the acting and writing. And because I always have been interested in the writing part, the acting too, but the writing and the whole process of it. So I just, I started doing little things, I wrote I did a commercial. Buddy of mine, Ron Lee, who's in the movie, he plays the black guy with the dreads. He's the one who co-directed it. The editor. Yeah. So he comes up.
He didn't want his name to be mentioned.
He didn't, yeah, because he didn't want those fools coming looking for him. So he one day he came to me and he said, "Hey man, but he wanted to do a Doritos commercial." And I said, "Okay, let's write it. I could write it." And he goes, "Yeah, but we have to have it by Sunday." It was like a Friday or a Thursday or something. And I said, "Okay, I could write it by Sunday." He goes, "No, it has to be shot in the can, done by Sunday." Wow. So I said, "Dude, that's not a lot of time." So I went and I wrote it. I wrote it that night and I came back. And working in production, there's a lot of people like me who have aspirations to do other things, but they're taking jobs to put food on the table and so I know all these guys and I said, look, here's an opportunity. Like, let's all put in what we do. I'm a makeup artist. I'll do the makeup. Ron Lee, you do this. And, we all kind of change roles, like camera op, you shoot it, but then you could also be in it or whatever it is. And we did this little commercial called Doritos Crashed the Super Bowl with these mobsters, and it turned out really, really funny. Like I'm talking like people loved it. And so we didn't win, but we turned it too late. And that kind of kickstarted stuff. And then I made a web series called The Good Life, which about these wise guys that come out to LA and get involved in the entertainment industry. And we did I think we did 8 webisodes for $1,000. And yeah, man, it kind of just took off from there. And so now I'm to the point where I'm still doing makeup. I'm still Lopez's guy, but I'm pushing more to get into the filmmaking. And Made in Mexico ended up becoming a pretty good success for me on that end because people could see now what I'm capable of. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. They go, yo, you made this movie for 20 grand in 6 days. What if I gave you 50 grand and gave you 2 weeks? And I said, I'm not going to do that because it's too hard on somebody. So you're actually going to be working with Mario. There's a movie that you guys shot, Holiday in Santa Fe, right? You play Santa Claus. That's supposed to be coming out pretty soon. Yeah, I think it might be out already. I think it came out on it's a Lifetime movie. So when I work with Lopez, I do his hair and makeup, right? And so a lot of times,
the reason why he looks so good. He owes that to you.
Pretty much, dude. I mean, I'm not with him in New York right now, and he's kind of looking. I mean, if you watch
I saw the post.
Yeah,
he looks good. He looks good.
He looks okay. He doesn't look great, but yeah, I'm kind of like I'm like the if something doesn't work out, they're like, hey, put Tootie in that role, or hey, I was in like 4 different roles in that movie, but I ended up Santa in a scene, so it's not a big part. It's just a little like one scener. But yeah, I'm in that too.
Awesome. And just lastly, again, love asking this question to our guests. What are some of the shows that you're binge watching when you're not working?
Dude, This is crazy when I tell you this. So nothing. And I'm going to tell you why. My wife, we're a screen-free house. I know it's kind of crazy. My kids go to a Waldorf school. And so I have a big ass TV right here. I rarely get to watch it. So, my time is pretty much consumed with my family and writing. And
that's good.
That's about it, and once in a while, depending on what it is, I'll check something out. Like if it's a movie, usually it has to be a movie, or I'll watch it on my phone, but the last series, this is how long it's been. The last series I would say I watched was probably Mad Men or Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders, the second season.
Both great shows, both on my favorites list.
Yeah, let's see. Back then it was, this is pre-kids, so it was.
Are you caught up, or are you behind a little bit? Or
no, I'm way behind. I mean,
the new season's coming out.
What's that?
The newest season's about to come out. You got to get caught up.
Yeah. I mean, I missed that one right behind you, right there, The Sopranos. That was my favorite show. Oof. No, dude, I do, and the kids are getting a little bigger now, so, and they've never watched the movie, and this is going to be their first. I'm kind of bummed because I was going to do a big premiere in Hollywood, not a big premiere, but I was going to do a premiere, red carpet, the whole bit, and then COVID hit, and so like my kids have never watched a movie or a TV show, and so this was going to be their first movie they were going to see themselves on the big screen, which they still will, but it's just a matter of when stuff opens up and when it's available. So
yeah, no, awesome. No, definitely. I mean, if you get the premiere going, I'd love to love to attend, but love to also post obviously on our page and help do some promotions for that, and we'll share the link over for fans to see the film. Super inspiring.
Premiere, you got to come out here. You got to come out. You got to walk the carpet. You got to be there. Come on.
I'll be there. If you can do my makeup, I'll be there.
I'll do it. If you come, I'll do it.
Awesome. I just want to thank you, man. Super honored and blessed to have you. I know we were working on this and super excited. The movie is super aspiring. Again, as an aspiring writer, it's a super inspirational film, true underdog movie. Lillo's awesome. You're awesome. You need to get credit too. I mean, you're also the star in the film. So
thank you.
Just want to say it was an amazing job, and definitely want fans to see it, and excited, man, to see where we go from here.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Thanks for having me on, and Lillo and I have other stuff cooking too. So it's not the last. It's the first time you see us together. It ain't the last time. There's going to be other roles that him and I are going to be working on together. So he's a good dude. He's a talented guy.
Can't wait. Both of you guys are extremely talented. Rod, thank you for joining, and looking forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, my man.
Thank you, brother. Take care. Have a good evening.
You too.